This is a pretty bad offensive team right now. You know, they are not a good offense. And it's weird because, as I said, you don't think of a lot of their guys as defenders. So I think you think of some of their players as offense first guys.
Mhm.
And yet, I think if you were going down the list of guys you would sort of expect to be their better offensive players, I don't know how long it would take for you to get to Malik Williams. And yet lately, he's their most consistent offensive player, I think, because he's kind of doing what they want him to do and not doing a whole lot more. They probably would prefer he take a one less three a game maybe, but he's been consistent. 5 straight games in double figures. He's kind of figuring out that he doesn't get to pick and pop every time. He needs to roll some. His post-ups have been pretty efficient when they've done it. So, like, he's a good offensive player. And then after that, like, Noah Locke is their next leading scorer, but I don't know who I would say is their next best offensive player. They have a bunch of guys who you sort of want to be this really good offensive player. And they don't have a guy yet who is there. Like, I watched Dre Davis, and you look at the numbers in terms of like possessions that he uses the kind of possessions of a guy who should be, a top 2 scorer on the team at the very least, and he's not. And so, offensively, I think, in college basketball, it gets late early, right? And they've got a lot to figure out, and it seems like they have a lot of time to do it, but I'm not sure that they do.
Yeah, that's the thing is you keep saying, oh, it's early. And next thing you know, you've got one more or 2 more non-conference games, and then league play kicks in. And while it hurts me to say this, that Pittsburgh, my alma mater, is the worst team in the league. And there's maybe 1 or 2 others where you just really cringe at what they've done so far this season. This league is not great, which is a problem when you are among the teams that is the most among the most inconsistent teams, that you just don't know. Like, they could play NC State 10 times, and I would feel confident thinking that maybe it's a 5-5 split or 6-4, because we don't know which team is going to show up, especially offensively. The one thing, Brett, that has stuck out to me that I keep going back and forth on. You have to think that the guys who career-wise have been good shooters will figure it out. But there also has been some shot selection and where these guys are, or shot selection questions, and where these guys are being used in this offense that maybe contributes to some of the struggles. But you mentioned Noah Locke. Jared West is not shooting it great from 3 compared to what he's used to doing. Even Matt Cross has had some issues as well. What do you make of that in particular, that the shooting has not been what we thought it would be with this group?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think sometimes you would say, well, are they not getting any good shots? But they are getting some. I mean, they are getting some pretty good shots. I think, at the beginning of the year, I watched Noah Locke for the first 2 or 3 games, and I thought, like, would he rather not be set? Like, would he rather be drifting a little? He seemed to shoot better when he was a little bit higher degree of difficulty, but he's also gotten some pretty good shots. Matt Cross, I think, would tell you he's gotten some shots that he wants and just hasn't made them. I don't think Jared West has gotten terrible shots. L. Ellis, I don't know what L. Ellis is as a shooter yet. What I know is he's a good finisher. He's a really good athlete. He's great in transition. Is he going to make shots? I don't know. But I wonder about some of the, Chris Mack has driven the point home so much the last week about getting the ball in the paint. And that's not just about posting up, and it's not just about screen and roll. It's part of that is about getting the ball inside to get it outside, getting guys those good kind of kick out. He calls them feet set threes. Again, I'm not sure Locke wants those. I think he wants feet moving threes a lot of the time. But yeah, I think he's right in the sense that you want to start there. You want to start with some penetrating pitch. You want to start with some, not necessarily posting up. They don't have great post up players, but they were pretty good at it last night against a bad team, for example. But I do think it's about generating better shots. The thing is, I do think I would love to have the data, like when you cover the NBA, you get data on like open versus wide open versus contested. And I'd like to know those numbers on these guys, because I feel like they've missed more than their share of open shots. And those are the ones you think, okay, that will come. Like those guys, if you keep getting those guys those shots, they're going to go in. Some of the other ones, I don't know. Like they may not have guys who are going to create 3-point shots. That just might not be a thing where they're going to get guys who make them off the dribble. And they might have to really start to phase those out, as I think Chris Mack is trying to do.
Yeah, that's the thing is, I try not to I try to filter the message board / Twitter noise because as the coach down the road would say, there's a lot of basketball bennies around who
Does he
have.
say? I've
I've
never
never
heard
heard that phrase before. Just only there. I've never heard it. I've only heard it once or twice. But no, it's there's a lot of people who don't think that their offense is doing what it's supposed to do, and I think it is for the most part. I mean, I think that their inability they if they could combine, I've talked about this with a couple different people, if they could combine the skill set of a few different guards into one guard, that would help them a lot. But I agree that with everyone's point, I mean, that they're having a hard time getting into the lane and breaking people down off the dribble and creating, but it's not like they're getting no good looks. They're missing open shots. Noah Locke is missing open shots. Matt Cross is missing open to wide open, to use the NBA phrasing, as you said. They're getting lots of good shots and they're just missing them. And I don't know, that's just bizarre to me.
Yep. I do wonder, I mean, they're going to have to, when Chris Mack talks about getting in the paint, they have to engineer that a little bit. It's got to be some screen roll. It's got to be setting really effective screens. I don't think they're a great screen setting team at this point, and they probably need to be, because they don't, other than Ellis. And even Ellis is more like a secondary break, beat his man off the dribble. He's like he reminds me a little bit of a guy I covered in my youth, D Brown at Illinois, who's great in transition, but not really a break you down one-on-one kind of guy yet. We haven't really seen that out of Ellis. He's good on the move. He's less effective when he's in a half court and he's got to make something happen. And that may come, by the way, because that's like a later adjustment for a lot of guys who are new to this level. But I do think, like, who is the guy you would say, like, oh, the game's on the line, I want this guy with the ball in his hands to go make us a play. I don't know who the guy is who you trust to go make a play. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that needs to be maybe Davis, but it hasn't been.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The Michigan State game, the conversation started to be, is Ellis the guy? Because he carried them to that point, got them back in the game. And then he still had the moment where I think he still thinks through, like, this is what I'm supposed to do, versus knowing the situation and recognizing that read is not there, that pass is not there. You've got to figure the next thing out.
Also, by the way, lost the ball at the end of the game and stood there and looked at the ball on the ground, which was not a great look.
Not a great look. The rest of the season, are you still kind of game to game trying to figure out if you can project what's next for these guys?
Yeah. I think the one thing you can say right now, and this was even really true against DePaul, like, they're a good defensive team. They gave themselves a chance to beat DePaul. And I'm not saying DePaul is like some world beater, but they're 9-1, they're
solid.
They're a pretty good team. And, like, they did that. They beat Louisville without Freeman Liberty doing anything, and that's, they did a great job on him. That's what you talk about Jared West being so good on the ball. He was great on him. It's just that they couldn't stop the other guy. So that was a problem. But, like, their defense gave them a chance to win that game. And I think their defense will give them chances to win games. I mean, based on what we've seen so far, would you expect anything but like a rock fight when they play Kentucky? Neither team really seems like they can score, and they both seem like they'll guard pretty hard. And I think that's Louisville's situation. I think they're gonna be in most games. And so I don't think they're a bad team. I don't think they're a team that's gonna, I don't think they're gonna be. I think they'll be a better than 500 team in the ACC. I don't think the league is great. To your point, how much that matters is up in the air, because how many quality wins do they have a great opportunity to get? I don't know. They're going to need to seize most of the chances they get to do that if they want to have a decent seed. But I just think, because offensively, and I don't want to, like, just parrot the things that Chris Mack says, but it is true that, like, you just don't have, and he said, like, that he's got 4 or 5 guys, right, that he feels like on any given night he knows what he's going to get. And I think that means overall, because offensively, I think right now you can feel pretty confident that Malik Williams will get you 8 to 12 points almost every night, just because he does enough stuff to get it. He'll get putbacks, he'll get a couple of post-ups, he'll roll once, he'll make a 3, hit a couple free throws, whatever. Other than that, like, who's the guy who you say, like, I know what that guy's going to give me? They don't have another double-digit scorer. Noah Locke is just below. They don't have a guy who you just say, like, I can count on that guy. I know what I'm going to get out of him offensively. And unless they get that, they are going to be a big question mark. I think what Max said last night about Jae'Lyn Withers kind of being the backup five moving forward, I think is probably the right way to go for them. They should
Mm,
probably be playing that way. You're going to have some unhappy centers, I think.
yeah.
But it's probably the smart way to go because you need to generate some offense. So put a good offensive player out there and hope you can maybe get him kickstarted playing against maybe creating a couple of matchup problems with him.
Mhm.
Because they got to get something out of him or Samuel Williamson. They got to get something out of a guy who hasn't given them any offense. And then they've got to find another guy who goes and gets it pretty regularly.
Yeah, no question. Those two guys, it's so bewildering where their confidence and assertiveness has gone. Williamson had a couple good games earlier this season, but they have just been. It's very bizarre. It's very
Mississippi
bizarre.
State, I think, right, looked unstoppable. Just they
Yeah,
couldn't guard him. He got where he wanted to get. He got to his spots and he made shots. He had a good mid-range game working, which, by the way, is I know a lot of people hate it. The mid-range game is like really valuable if you can make the shots.
Yes.
When I covered Billy Donovan, he used to always say the good shots are the ones you hit, and like so, mid-range shots are good if you can make them consistently. And the shots he got against in that game were I think it was I want to say it was Mississippi State. It was in Mississippi State or Maryland. I'm pretty sure it was Mississippi State.
I think it was Mississippi State. Yeah.
Those are great shots, but he hasn't made those. And like last night, he had a breakaway layup that he rolled over the top of the rim,
Yeah.
which makes you think like that's where you start to think like he's got the yips about it. He's just
Yep.
like his confidence about his ability as a scorer. I always think we overplay the idea of lack of confidence. Basketball players believe they are good basketball players all the time, but there's like a demonstrated performance confidence, like a thing where you have faith in your ability to go get a bucket or whatever, and that seems a little shaken for him.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great example, the missed layup. And I think the charge on the landing of the floater probably rattled him a little bit too.